Hello fellow book nerds, welcome to my January wrap-up. January was, blew it out of the water, amazing reading month. I've read 13 books, which for me is really good. It was mostly because my Scribd membership was ending, so I was like, I am reading every book they have. And it's just generally mainly audiobook month, but I read some other books as well. Let's just get into it because we have a lot to talk about. Firstly, I finished We Set the Dark on Fire by Tehler K. Mejia. So this book follows a story of Ireland where the custom is for the rich and powerful to have two wives, one of which is embodying the intelligence of women and helping all that, and one is embodying emotions and caringness and all of that of women. So there's a school for these future wives where they're being trained to be either a primera or a segunda. And primera is the stoic, intelligent, fact-driven wife, and segunda is the warm, emotional side of the wives. So there's a school where they train how to be perfect wives, and their main character is just graduated this school. And in this world, as you can imagine, there's quite a bit of segregation and some issues, and the world is kind of like Latin America inspired. I did not really enjoy it. I found nothing wrong with the book. It's an FF romance. The book was okay, but I did find myself not caring very much, not very attached to the characters. I thought the world building was rather poor because I did not understand the world very much at all, especially the outside of the island, because there's so much division between different places in the island and then outside of the island, but honestly I didn't really understand it very much. I listened to this as an audiobook. I ended up giving it 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was an okay read, but nothing I would really recommend that much. Then I read Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco. This was recommended to me by Nicole, from Nicole and her books, and she really loves this book. So it tells a story of a girl who lives in a world where there are different kinds of witches, and then she is found to be a bone witch, and the bone witch basically is a necromancer with some other tricks as well, and kind of a death witch really, and she's found to be that. And the story bounces back and forth between her as a kid getting the training, being discovered, all that kind of stuff, and her as an adult. So she has been exiled and we don't know what happened. And the story itself I did enjoy it, although it's really slow. There's some very quiet moments. We get a lot of time when she's a child and we don't really do anything but stick with her and clean. And so the way they discover she's a bone witch, she raised her brother from the dead. I love that relationship between her brother and her, which was really touching and really amazing. I think the ending was pretty interesting, so I'm probably gonna continue because I bought the second book on the ebook, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read Girls with Sharp Stakes by Suzanne Youngs. I listened to this as an audiobook as well. This tells a story of a school for proper ladies. It's an all-girls school and they're taught how to be perfect women, how to be perfect girls, how to make their husbands, etc. happy. Yes, it does sound a lot like We Set the Dark on Fire, but it's so much better. I loved this book. It was really amazing and powerful and had so many themes of empowerment, what it means to be a woman, how to kind of break through conditioners and barriers, and how to stand out for yourself. I just loved it so much. It was really well written. I thought the writing was beautiful. I put some quotes in my bullet journal and that. It was really good. I feel like this book is really underhyped because I haven't heard that many people speak about it. There's so many great female characters, although I must say there's a lot of them, but they are a bit interchangeable, so not that well developed. But them as a collective I thought was great, and I really enjoyed their interactions and their friendship. I thought it was really beautiful. Next I read American Panda by Gloria Chose. This also I listened as an audiobook. It's a contemporary novel telling a story of a Taiwanese American girl whose parents want her to be a medic. She goes to MIT for her first year, and just kind of her story of finding herself, standing up to her parents, and it talks a lot about culture and expectations and all of that. I found it really interesting. I thought it was a good audiobook. I learned some stuff. It was really fun and easy read, while at the same time being quite hard-hitting because there's a lot of struggles with her parents and their expectations, and I thought that the character growth that her mom went through was amazing. I'm just not a huge contemporary person way, which I've just been discovering this month because I haven't read it in so long. I used to read it quite a lot when I was younger. And now it all seems quite hitting the same beats. I did enjoy it, but I only gave it 3 out of 5 because I could see why it was really important, really good to learn. 3 out of 5 for me isn't bad. Like, I don't want you to think I didn't enjoy the 3 out of 5 star books. I did. Then I read A House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin A. Craig. This was our pick for January for the Spook Book Club, which was a really good pick. I've enjoyed it immensely. It's a retelling of 12 Dancing Princesses, and it tells the story of one of the sisters, and her sisters keep dying off and she doesn't know why. It's a very dark world. Everything's taking place on this desolate island, not desolate, like this island, and you can really feel that. The isolation, the coldness, the atmosphere setting was amazing. I felt really eerie and closed off. I thought that was done really well, and I really liked the characters, although a lot of them were so interchangeable. I know it's hard to do when you have so many characters, but I thought some of their personalities were so plain and nothing special there. So one minus probably. Another thing that I felt could use some work was that there was very little foreshadowing and very little building of lore. So when something big happened, like a twist, we only find out that it's a thing while it's happening. So it's not even something we can figure out, and it wasn't really foreshadowed, or we weren't told the lore at the beginning. We literally just find it out as it was happening. So that made me feel like it was a bit cheap. I still really enjoyed this read. I thought it was eerie. It gave me exactly what I wanted. A bit of fantasy, a bit of creepiness. I couldn't stop reading it and I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 5 out of 5. Next up we have, finally, after what, 4 months, I finished Dark Dawn by Cristo. So this book was an experience and a half. I started this in September. I wanted to make a reading vlog and I started it, and then I felt like I couldn't read it if I'm not filming it. It just became a whole thing. It's an enormous book anyway, and it just became so stressful for me that I decided not to go with the vlog, and I decided just read it because you enjoy it and stop stressing. It was a little bit of a disappointment as a conclusion because I love Nevernight so much, and I thought God's Grave was so amazing as well. This one was good, but it was a bit of meandering, and some things were a bit underwhelming. Like the final resolution, final battle, I thought was so underwhelming and disappointing because it basically became these 2 OP characters just flying in the sky as blurs. I did not really enjoy that. I thought it was such a cop-out. The ending, I was so surprised that's how it ended. I did not expect that. I thought everyone was crying. I don't understand why. It was a little bit anticlimactic, but at the same time, I'll still forever love the series. I gave this 3.5 out of 5, which was a big surprise. Next up, my favorite book of the month, which is The Diviners by Libba Bray. I listened to this on audiobook and it was such a cool experience. So this book takes place in the 1920s in America, and it tells kind of a story of a girl who moves to his uncle's house in New York, and in this world there are people called diviners who have special abilities, and there's also been some murders going on in New York. It's just so good. Everyone was telling me how good it was, but it really is so good. The audiobook was amazing. There was 1920s music, and then the accents were so on point. There's a really big cast of characters, and it took me ages to really understand who's who, because especially when it's an audiobook, I find it quite hard to kind of discern who's who and what's happening. So it took me a while, but at the same time, all the characters, once you actually get to know them, are so distinct, and they have their distinct voices. Just the use of medium as an audiobook was really good. The atmosphere setting was amazing. I'm sure the book as well is really good, but I so enjoyed that, and the action was really good, really well paced. I felt engaged all the time. Oh, and I gave Diviners 5 out of 5. Amazing. I loved it. 5 out of 5. Then I listened to Be Honest by Maggie Ann Martin. So I first heard of this book from Zoe. She read it for her video of like reading fat rap books. It tells the story of a girl who is overweight and she is in high school, and her sister moved this year to university, and she used to be really close with her sister. So it's a big change in her life and she feels a bit lonely, and her mom recently went through the divorce. And to cope with that, she decided to go to kind of like wellness fitness, lose weight kind of reality show, and she did lose a lot of weight, but now she's really obsessed with calories and weights and looks and all of that, and she's kind of projecting a lot of that on her daughter. The main character's named Savannah, I think. I like that the main character didn't really have an issue with herself. It was her mom who had an issue, because I think that was a really interesting perspective. So I really enjoyed that, the part of her mom coming to terms with herself, but also the main character Savannah coming to terms with herself, and kind of story of her growing up. And then the romance was okay, but there was a lot of miscommunication, hot and cold. I thought the main guy love interest was really cute, and I really liked him, and then after the 5th time he just kind of blew her off after being like really cute and sweet. I just was done with him. Like, it was really stupid. It was just some bullshit miscommunication trope. I really didn't like it, and so that kind of killed the romance for me, if I'm being honest. There was a whole subplot with her being involved in the school newspaper, which kind of ended up which I thought was just so pointless, but then in the end it did kind of end up tying in and kind of made sense why it was there, but still I feel like it wasn't tied in that well. It just felt so tacked on until the very last, and I give it 3 out of 5 again, because I feel like that's the trend with contemporaries that I've been listening to. Next up, I read My Sister, the Serial Killer by Oinko Braithwaite. So this book takes place in Nigeria, and it tells the story of Korede, who is constantly bugged by her sister, who just cannot stop killing her boyfriends, and she has to clean up. So basically her sister is a serial killer, and she just cleans up after her. It's kind of a dark humor novel. I actually really enjoyed this. I read this in one day because I was attempting to do a 24-hour readathon, which did not work out. It was more of a 12-hour readathon, but maybe you'll find out about that one day. I like seeing the main characters interact and kind of how Korede is dealing with her sister being batshit crazy, but at the same time I feel like her motivations of why she's keeping a secret, why she's helping her, were a bit underdeveloped. We didn't really learn what's motivating her. She was just like, oh, it's my sister. But I feel like this could have either been a really short story, because it's kind of a medium-sized book, either a short story or like a bit longer novel where we really dive into that. But that being said, I really did enjoy it. I thought it was fun, unique, weird, so all the best things. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, so I'd recommend it. It was pretty good. Then I read Kings, Queens and Inbetweens by Tanya Boteju. So this tells the story of Nima, she is a lesbian. She lives in a small town, and it's really about her just discovering the LGBTQ queer world in all its glory. She's discovering drag queens and drag kings, and just kind of coming to terms with what it means to be the part of the community, what she wants to do, kind of getting more confident. I thought it was a really good book until it did some stuff that really annoyed me. It into some tropes that I don't find very comforting, especially in regard to like maybe bisexual, maybe lesbian characters about being cheaters and stuff, which just really annoyed me. I don't like seeing that. I think just because a bisexual person is in a relationship with opposite sex doesn't mean they're gonna drop them and run off with a person from the same sex if they show up. I just think it's kind of annoying and presumptuous. I'm sure that's not what the trope was used, but it annoyed me anyway, kind of on a personal note. So that's why I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars, and on Goodreads like 3 stars. Again, I thought it was decent, but contemporaries, a lot of miscommunication. Then I finished Come Tumbling Down by Shanna Maguire, which is like 5th book in the Wayward Children series. So this series is kind of short stories. They kind of companion novels to each other, telling stories of children who have discovered portal worlds when they were young, and they go through them and then they come back and they have to deal with the real world, and often that's not their true home and they find themselves really lost. So this story ties in directly into the 1st and 2nd book in the series, because normally you don't have to read all of them and you don't have to read them in the sequence, but this one really does tie in pretty much straight after the 1st book, and the 2nd book is a prequel to the 1st book, and this is kind of a continuation of that. It continues the story of Jack and Jill, who go to this really gothic world when one of them is an assistant to the mad scientist, so they're twins, and one of them is vampires. I'm apprentice. This series is really fun. There's been some really big hits and really big misses for me. I really like the fourth book and the second book, so the one that's really connected to this one. And this one I thought it was fine, but again, it didn't blow my mind, but I gave it 3 out of 5 and I thought it was a decent continuation. Then I listened to Esperanza Rising by Pam Ryan. This tells the story of Esperanza, who lived in Mexico when she was a child in quite an affluent household, and her dad sadly passes away. So she and her mom are forced to flee their home and emigrate to America, and tells her story of their journey and then also what it was like to live in America. And it's not a direct true story, but it was inspired by the author's grandmother's story. So the author's grandmother told her what her experience was like, and this was kind of a fictionalized account of that. Really powerful story. I thought it was beautiful. It was really beautifully written. It is really slow though. There's a lot of quiet moments, so if you're more into those quiet moments and kind of contemplation, day-to-day struggles kind of thing, that's good. But if you're into action, I would not recommend this because not that much happened. I mean, a lot happened, but it wasn't like that action-packed. But it's a really short book and I really recommend it. I give it 3 out of 5. Yeah, I'd recommend it. I thought it was a beautiful story, but be prepared for more of a slow one. And lastly, I have finished Etta and Otto and Russell and James by Emma Hooper. So this tells the story of Etta, who lives in Canada with her husband Otto, and she's over 80 years old and she has dementia or Alzheimer's. It's not exactly explained, but her lifelong dream was to visit the sea, so she decides to go on a 2,000-mile walk to the sea, and it kind of follows her story. It's a very weird whimsical story. I have a vlog where I'm reading it, so you can check it out there. It was a really abstract in some senses because the current timeline is more like fabulism, magical realism kind of thing, and then the past is where we learn their life history when they were children and they were quite young. That was more grounded in reality. All in all, I did enjoy it. I thought it was really beautiful, especially the ending. The writing was simple but punching and beautiful. I'd recommend it, but again, a really slow, well, not slow going, but no like action packed, really quite character study kind of slower story. So if you're into that and you're okay with a little bit of ambiguity, you don't know what's real, maybe there's definitely some unreliable narrators, and you're okay with the weird, then I'd recommend it. I thought it was fun. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I am honestly tired. I've been talking for ages. That's it for my January wrap up. Really long one. I hope you enjoyed it. I tried being a bit more concise on the books because there were so many of them and some of them I can't even remember that much about. So thank you so much for watching. So my favorite book of the month was The Diviners. Share your best book of the month with me down in the comments. Please let me know. I really want to know. I'm so curious. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope to see you in my next video. Yeah, thanks. If you could subscribe and like and comment, that'd be great. But that's it for me. Bye.